It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. Get over to Joe's Karting today and do yourself right with a little indoor karting at the Metro's fastest indoor karting facility, Joe's Karting. Find out more today, joeskarting.com. As always, karting with a K. Big show lined up for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about Darlington and a lot about everything that has happened since Darlington. Then in turn 2, we'll sit down with the current points leader for the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series. Say it with me because you're going to be surprised. Kyle Berck. Wait. No, that's not a surprise. But Kyle is going to join us, and he's going to help us preview today's race at Eagle Raceway, the Nebraska Cup, featuring the War Power Eye Wingless 410s, the Race Saver Sprint Series, and the Malvern Bank Super Late Models. And then he'll also help us preview next weekend's race at Knoxville, which you'll be over at.
Yep, and then they have one race after Knoxville. Is that correct?
Yeah, then I think it's the Malvern or the Fall Brawl, and that's championship day
for them. Yeah.
Yep.
So he's sitting in a good spot right now.
Jack Dover is going to join us in turn number 3. I don't know if you heard Jack's bank account. Well, actually, it's been a week since his bank account got a little healthier, so I'm willing to bet that money's probably been spent already.
Oh, yeah.
But won himself $10,000 at the Jackson Nationals last Sunday was the race?
Yeah, Sunday was the race. That was the specific reason he skipped the Race Saver Nationals, was to go win that money. And he also won $3,000 winning the feature show on Friday night, I believe. He won one of the Friday-Saturday features, too.
So that turned out to be a good decision.
Yep.
I think it was like $1,500 or $1,700 to win the Race Saver Nationals. He ended up going up north to Jackson Motorplex and winning $13,000. So my Iowa math tells me that was a good decision.
Yeah, and that was in his car. He wasn't driving somebody else's equipment.
Right.
You know, obviously the expenses were a little bit more with traveling and, staying up there and everything, but still definitely money-wise.
And then in turn number 4, we are going to preview today's race at Indy, and we're going to talk about a couple of the playoff clinching scenarios for a couple of the drivers that are right there in the bubble area in the 13th to 18th position.
Well, you meant Chase Elliott clinching already because he won a race. That's what you meant.
That's what I meant. So that'll be coming up in turn number 4. All right, let's talk about Darlington. And guys, we're going to have to do this pretty quickly. Darlington was a good race, but there's a lot that's happened since it. So we're just going to run through Darlington pretty quickly. Brad Keselowski getting his first Southern 500, first win at Darlington in the Cup Series. And
after his first win at Darlington in the Xfinity Series the day before.
He'd never won at Darlington, goes and does it Saturday in the Xfinity Series, comes back and does it on Sunday after stealing the race away from, I think Kyle Larson probably should have been that race winner if you want to give it to the guy who was the most consistent all day long.
Clean air.
But that's not how it works. You know, your pit crew doesn't get the job done or doesn't do it as good as the guy behind you, and you end up sitting in third place. And Brad Keselowski ends up getting the win. He finished 5th in Stage 1, 2nd in Stage 2, wins the race, walks away with 55 points on the day. Joey Logano comes home in 2nd, makes it a Penske 1-2. Before that, I don't believe Penske had won at Darlington since like the 70s.
Yeah, since Rusty Wallace.
It'd been a long, long time since Penske had won, and they end up coming back 1-2. Kyle Larson finished 3rd, Kevin Harvick 4th. Chase Elliott rounds out your top 5. Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Eric Jones, Jamie McMurray, and Denny Hamlin round out your top 10. Jimmy Johnson, who not having a great year. We've talked about it, struggling with the Chevys. He's struggling kind of could be at the end of his career, but we never really do know. Ends up finishing 39th on the day after having oil pump issues. And other Chase contenders, Daniel Suarez finished 29th on the day, started 16th, so he just went backwards from there. Really, that's about it. William Byron, another Hendrick car that finished outside the top 30. He finished 35th. Clint Boyer, involved in an accident, finished 36th. Rough days for a couple of guys who needed to have good days.
Yeah, and the Boyer accident was really pretty scary looking. That's one of those deals where one guy's going to the pits and, you know, evidently his spotter didn't get it communicated, which is usually what happens. People don't realize that. I mean, the guy will wave his hand a little bit out the window, hey, guys, I'm going to the pits. But the spotters usually talk upstairs, and the guy will give a signal, we're going in. Mm-hmm. And evidently that didn't get communicated to Clint, and he hit that car at probably an extra 80 or 90 miles an hour, and that's a bad deal when that happens.
Did it seem to me like Ryan Newman was entering the pits a little high? Like he seemed to be a groove and a half higher than typically you would be down on the racetrack entering the pits.
Well, I don't know because I hadn't watched him enter the pits, and it was hard to tell exactly on the track where they were. So I don't know if that was a normal line to get into the pits or not. So, I really can't comment there. All I know is if Boyer would have known that he was going to the pits, he would have been higher.
Right.
He'd been going around him instead of trying to go underneath him.
It's one of those things that every sports cliche will come into a factor here, but communication is key. Every member on a race team is important, and when the spotter, I heard him saying that he wasn't able to tell Clint because Clint and the crew chief were having too much of a conversation on the radio. Okay. He says, I can't chime in if you guys are on the radio.
Exactly. So if the radio's being used, those radios allow one person to talk at a time. It's not a party line.
Right.
So if the crew chief and Clint were going back and forth and he couldn't squeeze in, then, that's where the mix-up came. So, but it was just a real scary accident. Everybody was okay, so that's great. But, everybody goes, well, what was Clint doing? Well, what was Ryan Newman doing? It depends who you're a fan of. They were both doing their job, They just didn't know what the other guy was doing, and it was a bad deal.
Back to the front, Brad Keselowski gets his first win on the year, and he becomes the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th different winner on the year with locking into the playoffs. Now, he was pretty much in as it was,
points-wise,
sitting right there, 5th, 6th, 7th, point-wise, but now it's guaranteed he's getting into the playoffs. But now that puts a couple of guys on the bubble, and guys like Jimmy Johnson, if there is another new winner today at Indy, Jimmy Johnson could be on the outside looking in for the first time in his career. To my recollection, I believe he is the only driver that has made the playoff chase system every year that it's been implemented since 2004. I think it was the first year they started doing it.
Yeah, I believe 2004 is correct, and I believe you're correct that he's made it every year because this is the farthest he's gone into a season without a win.
Yeah, it's his longest winless streak.
So he's always locked in with a win, and this year, unless he wins Indy, which very well could happen, he's, right now he's sitting in to get pointed in. As far as Indy goes with somebody that's not already in winning, I know Paul Menard's won Indy. It's his only win that he's ever got.
Ryan Newman's won at Indy. Casey Kane, although Casey won at Hendrick, not at Levine Family Racing.
Casey won with different equipment than where he's at now. And, let's face it, he's already announced his basic retirement, so he's kind of a lame duck. Yeah. I don't expect him to do much the rest of the year. If he sneaks a win in somewhere, you're looking at one surprise, that nobody's going to even look at or think about.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for our recap of Darlington. It was a good race, and it was good to see the stands that were semi-full again. I think that throwback that we talked about last weekend that they've been doing for the last couple of years is helping to kind of reinvigorate that fan base in the Darlington area to come in and watch that race. But that's always a good race. It's a super speedway at a small track feel.
Well, you can't say the Darlington area because Darlington is no area. I don't think Darlington's got 10,000 people. It's a very small. They don't even have an airport.
No.
Yeah, you got to fly in 20, 25 miles away in Florence. And when I first went to Florence, they couldn't even take a Learjet because they didn't have enough runway.
I wonder what Newton's capacity or population is. That's got to be about 4,000 or 5,000, right?
I have no idea, but they got an airport.
They got an airport.
Darlington doesn't have an airport, but it's a big deal when the circus comes to town in Darlington.
All right, let's switch tracks just a little bit. This is probably going to take us longer than what's actually going to air on the air, so this will probably end up being a online exclusive cut, but boy, huge news coming out of the NASCAR world. On Tuesday, Barney Visser, president of Furniture Row Racing, announced they were going to be ceasing operations effective the end of the 2018 season. They have 11 races left until they're done as an operation. And that comes as a big surprise because when 5 Hour announced several weeks ago that they were going to be removing their sponsorship from the 78 team and from NASCAR in general, Barney Visser said, we're going to be racing for the 2019 season. It was, I believe, 14 races that 5 Hour Energy was supplying that team with funding. And now we find out after Tuesday that their efforts to find replacement sponsorship and replacement revenue has gone afoul, and they're not able to replace that money. This is the key thing to this statement that I really want to push, because I think this is something that apparently a lot of people have overseen. We have been aggressively seeking sponsorship to replace the 5 Hour Energy and to offset the rising cost of continuing a team alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing, but haven't had any success. The quote goes on, but that's the part I wanted to talk about first. A lot of people jumped on and said this is a NASCAR problem, and I completely disagree with that.
Absolutely not a NASCAR issue.
It will become a NASCAR issue when your top championship contending team, one of the big threes, is now going under. That will become a NASCAR problem. But this is not NASCAR's fault directly. There, you could make some connections between the diminishing attendance and the diminishing ratings. But the rising cost of continuing a team alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing.
Hey, we saw the exact same thing a couple years ago when Stewart Haas had their alliance with Hendrick, and they won a title. And then a year later, their contract with Hendrick was due, and lo and behold, they went to Ford.
Right.
You know, I'm telling you right now, folks, it's business. Look, Hendrick says, we took you to a title. You know, we're providing you with cars and technical alliance and all that info from our 4 teams, you know, and you want a title, of course you're going to give us a chunk.
Yep. And according to Jimmy Johnson, it was a very one-way communication for Hendrick Motorsports to Stewart Haas Racing. Hendrick, according to their contract, was sending all the information, but Stewart Haas didn't have to reciprocate with the information they were finding and the speed they were finding in their cars. And that's where Jimmy had talked about it in a media center years later, said that the big problem for us with that thing was that we weren't getting any kind of information back from them. If it was a sharing kind of a thing, it'd have been a different story, but we were sending all the information to them. They were using it to their advantage and not giving us anything back.
It also would have been priced quite a bit different.
True, absolutely.
You know? And I believe that's the same way with the Joe Gibbs thing, you know, when Toyota stepped in out in Denver and took over Furniture Row, you know, as far as the manufacturer side of it. And, you know, they said, we're going to hook you up with Joe Gibbs and you're going to have, all their knowledge. I don't think there was any reciprocating because Martin Truex was so fast. And you saw, I don't remember which race it was. Well, it was Indianapolis last year, I think, where they had, the crew chiefs in the other crew box,
when they got into the fight? Yeah,
almost a fight.
Yeah, because Joe Gibbs Racing leased their team to the 78 team.
Correct. So, see, that was all part of the expense. Well, then this year, the 78, I think it was actually late last year after that incident, the 78 went ahead and took all those guys under employment.
Right.
Is what happened.
And took over management and obligation for it, right.
And so I think when the contract rolled around this year for, hey, or we're still going to be in this alliance, I do believe that pot increased quite a bit. And, it's basically what he said.
Yeah.
From my
understanding, that fee went up 3 times. I don't know the amount that they were paying before, so I can't do the math to get what Joe Gibbs was asking for. But if I'm to guess, and I just can't stress this enough, if I'm to guess, I would bet that alliance was probably somewhere around $1 million a year.
Oh, no, way more than that. Way more than that.
Before, when the 3 or 4 year deal they entered into.
I'll bet it was still way more than that. They were buying chassis from Joe Gibbs and everything else. I mean, you go through 20 chassis in a year, that's over $1 million, So
it's the bill was going to go up 3 times. It hurts to say that Barney Visser made the decision that he basically looked at the situation and said, we could drop the alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing, but we're a single car team in Denver. We're on an island, and to continue at the level we're at, we have to have that alliance with Joe Gibbs Racing, and we can't afford the bill. So he's decided, and although it hurts to say it, I don't really blame him, because the guy's a business owner. All these car owners are business owners. They're business people. They're smart people. And as soon as they start seeing red, they'll start walking away from the situations, which is where we're at with, I believe, which is where we're at with Roush Fenway Racing. They couldn't make the numbers work, so they continuously reduced their budgets to what they were doing, to the point now where they're basically an obsolete team. Matt Kenza said it on the radio last Sunday night at Darlington. He goes, I can't believe how bad this car is.
Well, and BK Racing went into bankruptcy court, on their deal. And Barney Visser says, I could borrow money and keep us going, but I'm not going to do that.
I don't blame him.
69 years of age, why would you destroy your family's nest egg just for the race team? He went from the bottom to the top. He won the title. He's got nothing to prove to anybody. Right. And he's pulling the pin now. So all these guys from here on in through the last race in Homestead, his guys can go interview at the track for jobs instead of trying to fly to Charlotte to talk to somebody. Like he said, he's on an island. Their shop, I'm not going to say it's the smallest shop in NASCAR, because I'm sure, the 95 car and the number 7 car and some of these shops are pretty small. But
the 00 Starcom,
their shop is very small out in Denver. It's in the middle of an industrial park area, so there's no place to expand. I've been by their doors. I wanted to take a tour. They only do tours on Thursday. Well, it's Monday, and I live in Omaha, so tell Joe Garone I'm here. I know him, but no, it didn't work, so I didn't get any tour. But a very small place.
That didn't get you very far.
No.
That might have got you backwards, actually. They said, "Hey, Joe, there's a Dirk Houston." No, lock the door. Call security.
Yeah, tell him we're closed. Tell him we folded yesterday.
This was actually all the fault of Dirk Houston trying to get a tour of the facility. They just decided we're done. We're out of NASCAR.
It took him a while because I was trying to get a tour back in 2011. So,
but it's, in all seriousness, it's back to a serious issue that, again, Barney Visser isn't doing this to get out because he's made a bunch of money and now he wants to cash out. He's getting out because he can't make the numbers work. And that's the scary part, that at the beginning when I said this is going to become NASCAR's problem, NASCAR now has to sit down and make these owners come to the table. The last number I've heard, and I've heard this for several years, is to run a top 5 team is going to cost you about $30 million a year. To get to 38 races, 36-point paying races, I'm talking everything included, from the janitor pushing the broom at the shop to the driver turning laps at the racetrack. It's about $30 million a year. That is probably about $15 to $20 million more than it really should be, because the term that you've coined to me and that so many people have said, it's the cubic dollar. As soon as these guys can find a way to spend the money and find a 1/10 or 2/10, they're going to do it. And it goes back to me, I'm still shocked weeks after we found out about it that these teams have spent the money to buy that OSS system, so now they can find out a way to skirt the rules and manipulate the cars. Instead of reinvesting in the sport or I don't know, what they could do with that money, instead of not spending it, they went and bought an OSS system, and now they're behind schedule. And by the way, when we were talking to your buddy about that, and he said there is one major team still in the Cup Series that doesn't have one. Do you suppose it was Furniture Row?
Well, no, because again, they get their cars from Joe Gibbs.
Yeah, they don't need it.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Being on the island like that, and now that's one thing where NASCAR's trying to keep parity in the sport, but NASCAR created what I'm sure is a pretty good size expense on there. I mean, that machine's not $1 million, but it's probably $100,000.
It's a couple of salaries.
Yeah, with all that technology, and it's a salary and a half maybe for a crew guy, because who was the crew guy that sued Michael Waltrip a couple years ago, and we figured out he was making $1.25, $125,000
over the wall.
Like
I think he was a tire changer
and a fabricator. And it
was
like $60,000 for one job and like $65,000 for the other, something like that. So
the expense to this sport all comes down to the fact that, and I'll say it. I want to stress the fact that I said the expense to the sport, because this trickles down to dirt racing just as much as it is up in NASCAR.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's over at IndyCar, and it's down at dirt bikes, and it's anywhere that they can be competitive. And if I just spend a little bit more money, I can find victory lane more often than the next guy. It's unfortunate. I mean, I feel so bad for Martin Truex Jr. because this is now the third time this guy has taken an organization close to the top. He was there with Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, and then they folded for unfortunate reasons.
Well, exactly.
Outside of his control. He was there with Michael Waltrip Racing. Then they folded because of things outside of his control. Now he's there with Furniture Row Racing, and he's taken Furniture Row Racing farther than anybody else has. And now they're folding. And according to reports, him and Cole Pern are going to land safely along with Bass Pro Shops at the number 19 of Joe Gibbs Racing. Daniel Suarez is going to be moving on to Levine Family Racing, and they will take over the technical alliance that Furniture Row Racing is giving up with closing. So Joe Gibbs Racing is basically not feeling any of this because if it was their high price point that forced Furniture Row out of the operation, they've now found somebody to come in and replace either what Furniture Row was at and not beat them, or pay what Furniture Row was at, was what they were asking Furniture Row, and they've picked up a top-tier driver.
Yeah, and to me, if that's the way it all lands, because Daniel Suarez, the way I understand it, it's an uncle that owns Eris down in Mexico.
I didn't realize it was any family. I just know that they're, from everything I've heard, they are very, very supportive of Daniel.
Well, and that's what I've heard. It was an uncle. Okay, and I don't have any way to confirm that because, the guy that, when you Google it, the guy that is a CEO there is not Suarez. So, but again, all my uncles don't have my last name either,
Yeah.
So you can't confirm that. But he's the big winner in this whole deal because he's still going to have a Joe Gibbs car. It's just going to have a 95 on the side, and Levine Family's now bringing in a big sponsor.
And they're going to reap the rewards of this because it's not Joe Gibbs Racing that's going to get that sponsorship dollars. It's going to be Levine Family Racing.
Well, no, it's going to be Joe Gibbs that's charging the alliance money.
It's going to get transferred on, but Levine will get a good substantial portion of that money that will be able to fund their operation a little bit healthier.
Yeah, but I mean, the major portion, especially if they pay up what Furniture Row wouldn't pay, to Gibbs still ends up with a bunch of money in their pocket, which will allow them to somehow sponsor, the other 14 races or whatever that the Bass Pro Shops isn't. But I just don't understand, where the Bass Pro Shops deal goes because they already sponsor Richard Childress with a lot of Austin Dillon stuff. They already sponsor Stuart Haas, with a lot of different stuff there, usually on Clint's car. And Johnny Morris and Tony Stewart are real good buddies. Johnny Morris owns Bass Pro Shops. I just thought it was going to be a perfect fit to see Truex go over to the 41 with that sponsorship deal and keep it in-house type of thing. Now you're going to you've got a 2-car team at RCR. You've got 4 cars at Stuart Haas and 4 cars at Gibbs, basically all under the Bass Pro Shops banner. I mean, why doesn't he just buy NASCAR? Or why doesn't he become the title sponsor? Because Monster, I'm pretty sure, is going to bow out of that deal.
Yeah.
Even though they've got a heck of a bargain right now for their advertising. But, maybe Bass Pro Shops will step in and buy that, series sponsorship deal.
And NASCAR is going to a different tiered system for the sponsorship next year. They're not going to have an entitled sponsorship anymore after 2019 unless Monster Energy decides to renew. They're the only ones that have the ability to continue that sponsorship. But NASCAR is going to go to a different tiered system, and it's going to be very similar to, from what I understand, the F1 series when their sponsorship tiering, the way that they have it set up. It's just a little more conducive to the current market.
If somebody throws money at it, they'll change their mind in a heartbeat.
Probably.
So
yeah, it's going to be really interesting. But again, just to reiterate, what we know is that Furniture Row Racing will not be in operation in 2019.
That's a done deal.
Absolutely. Can't stress that enough. There's people calling into radio shows all week long saying, well, what if somebody comes up with all this money and the 15 or so over million that 5 Hour Energy is leaving with? You guys don't understand. Joe Gibbs Racing is already building Daytona cars. They already have photo shoots scheduled for 2019. The hero cards are getting made. The fire suits are getting made. Things are already in motion for 2019 that if Furniture Row was to pick up the sponsorship at this point in time, they wouldn't be able to get everything done in time for Daytona. And Barney Visser's a smart man. If he's making the announcement on Tuesday,
he's got nothing in the works.
Tuesday was past the deadline.
He's got nothing in the works.
And
I mean,
the amount
if he had something in the works, he would have made an in-house announcement. Hey guys, if you want to look for other jobs because it doesn't look like we're going to open, and he'd have kept rowing the boat, for another 3 or 4 weeks, maybe, something like that, before he actually pulled the plug, if there was anything in the works.
Yeah.
But there's not, and it's too bad.
And these deals,
it's a bad deal for the sport.
I don't care what anybody says about the economy. It could be good or bad. That's very subjective to who you are. These $14 million deals, they're not around anymore. To spend $14 million with one company cannot materialize in a month to 2 months to 3 months. It takes way too long for that kind of stuff to come about. All the different contracts you got to do. Long story short, Dirk and I are talking about it. Furniture Row Racing is done as of Homestead this year. I mean, they're going to close their operations. It's really unfortunate because there's a lot of talented people over there that are going to have to scurry and find new jobs.
Well, and the talented ones ain't got to worry. I mean, everybody in the industry, if you're good, everybody in the industry knows you're good.
Yeah.
Word already has it that the deal with Truex and Pern going to the 19 cars already a done deal. Mm-hmm. Now, that would surprise me if they pulled something and, maybe they did sign something up a week or two ago and Barney Visser found out about it and said, well, that's it. We're just folding. We're not even going to try anymore. But I don't see that happening. So I really doubt it's a done deal, but it could very well be close to a done
one of the
deal.
options could have been swap drivers. Put Martin in the 19, move Daniel over to the 78, move the Era sponsorship over there. But I don't think Barney Visser was interested in taking on a young driver again. He wants a quality driver in that ride that can win right now. He's not interested in spending the money to rebuild.
Exactly. And he had the heart attack a year ago. Mm-hmm. I'll guarantee you that played in this.
Oh, absolutely.
He
didn't, with you. 100%.
He had that heart attack with the stress of Martin trying to get that championship, which he wanted so badly, and he got it, and he stepped back, and good for him, Enjoy your life, dude. You did everything you wanted to. You built a company up from nothing that's one of the top betting companies in the world. You built a race team and went to the pinnacle of the sport. You've been from the bottom. You've climbed Mount Everest a couple times now. Go relax.
Take your time. Absolutely. Take the last 20, 30 years on this earth and enjoy the rest of it. Quit stressing about stuff.
Show up at a race if the bank account gets kind of fat and you want to throw $100,000 at the 95 team. Well, it probably wouldn't be the 95 team with them going with Gibbs, but Starcom.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys need a sponsor for a race or two. Here's $100,000. And I could see him doing that.
Speaking of Starcom, Derek Cope will be on the show next weekend to talk about their 2018 season and to kind of give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. I think that there's a lot of things that Starcom does that you look at their finishes. Maybe they finished 35th, maybe they finished 32nd, and you think, boy, I wish they could do a little bit better. And I think Derek's going to unveil a little bit of that's where they need to finish.
Well,
financially, in order to turn away from the racetrack and say we made $10,000 or $25,000, that's where they need to be.
Well, it's not necessarily where they need to be because they'd love to be 20th.
Yep.
But
they don't want to risk 20th for blowing an engine or risking the setup, blowing a tire, slamming the wall, and ruin a car. This kind of stuff. They have to play a very conservative game for the first 3 or 4 years of their operation to build up a nest egg.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they're doing. We sat when we were in Kansas back in May, and we were talking about the fact that they had 4 sets of used tires in their pit. They were going to run 2 fuel runs. Before they bothered to change tires. They weren't going to be in here every yellow changing tires. We were looking at the good teams having 8 or 9 sets of stickers. Well, that ain't in their budget.
Yeah.
But they're still out there. They're still performing. They're playing the whole race. They're, not running 3 laps and coming off up vibration. So
they're not starting parking. They're racing the whole race.
But that's what their budget allows. They've got a driver that has always been good with equipment, has never been a guy that sticks his nose in where it doesn't belong. If he looks at a hole and says, I can't get through there, he don't try.
Yeah. And by the way, every time that he's not been in the ride, they've destroyed a car. He's doing very well with keeping that operation in the green. So I would, if I was them, I would just say, to heck with it. We're going to stick with Landon Castle for the rest of the year because he doesn't put stress on the body shop. That's going to do it for us in turn number 1. Again, we went through a lot of stuff with that. Martin Truex Jr., Furniture Row Racing, Joe Gibbs Racing, Levine Family Racing, 95, Toyota, NASCAR, a whole deal. That a lot of it didn't stay on the air. So if you guys missed any part of it, which, again, you guys missed a lot of conversation, make sure you check out the YouTube channel. We'll have that show posted at about 10 a.m. this morning.
Whether any of it will mean anything to you or not, another story.
Yeah, unfortunately, with being on Sundays, it's all stuff that's been rehashed, but we got a little bit different of a take on it.
Yeah, I mean, we get a little bit different insight on some of it, but, it all comes down to the same thing. The team's going to be gone. Which isn't a good deal for the sport when your defending champion can't find sponsorship. We already know that Hendricks Motorsports is on the hunt for somebody to take the spot over, the main spot on the 48. Whether Cobalt and some of the Lowe's manufacturers stay with the 48 hasn't been said yet, but Lowe's is gone at the end of the year.
I would imagine that Cobalt will go with it because Cobalt is a Lowe's product.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're, one of the manufacturers that, gives products to Lowe's, but you can't say for sure because they never have.
Yeah.
Nobody from Hendricks has said that. All they've said is Lowe's is going. Whether they're taking all their affiliates with them or not is another story. Home Depot left but didn't take all their affiliates. You still see some tools and stuff that show up on some of the Gibbs cars every now and then.
But I don't want to beat this argument to the ground, but like Ryobi is owned by Home Depot. Cobalt is owned by Lowe's.
Well,
it's not just like DeWalt is a manufacturer that's sold at Home Depot and Lowe's, and DeWalt was one of the sponsors that came in with Home Depot, and when Home Depot left, DeWalt stayed for a while. I think with this scenario, I think it'd be more likely. But like you said, we haven't heard anything about Cobalt, what they're going to be doing
with their affiliates.
But the point is, they've got a huge hole to fill, along with they've got a lot of makeup work to do on those Chevrolets.
Well, and the difference between that and what you got out in Denver is, they own Furniture Row's got Barney's got a bunch of mattress stores, and Rick Hendricks has, I think, 600 and some odd car dealerships. Across
car
the country.
Dealerships can tend to be a little more profitable than a mattress store.
Correct. So if he's got to pull a little bit of money out, I'm sure that the other 3 teams are on the plus side for what they got going on, and he can always scrape a little money off of that and throw it over on the 48 car. There's a million things that they can do, and I'm sure they're actively looking, and I would not be surprised with 4 or 5 races to go. If Jimmy gets into the chase, or there I go, in with Chase Elliott to go for the end of the playoffs with Chase Elliott, then you will probably not hear about any sponsorship deal until he's out of the playoffs.
You don't think they'll do it before?
No, I mean, if he goes 8 weeks and doesn't make the final 4, that's when you're going to hear an announcement. If he goes 4 weeks and doesn't make the final 8 weeks, then you're going to hear the announcement. It's going to be something along those lines. I don't think if he's, running for the title at Homestead that they're going to make the big announcement that week. That wouldn't be fair to Lowe's, who's been very good to them.
And you don't want to take away from the attention of the team, which is right here and now. You don't want to talk about a sponsor for next year.
So, if he bows out, Kansas race, he's no longer in. Boom. If they've got something set up, that's when you'll hear that announcement.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back in turn number 2. The Marquette Missile. Kyle Berck will join us. Then Jack Dover, the Jackson Nationals champion, and we still have to preview Indy. We'll be back on the front stretch.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 2, and it's time to have a conversation with the new points leader for the Malvern Bank Touring Series. Kyle, man, did you ever think you would hear that with the way that this year started off?
No, when we were back there in 5th or 8th or whatever it was in points, we've done the points thing for a long time, but it was a slow start, and then the middle of the season was okay, or a little before the middle of the season, and then we got rolling really good. But nope, there for a few months, I did not think we'd ever hear this.
You've come a long ways. 7 wins in 13 features, 10 top 5s, 11 top 10s. Had a couple of misfortunes, not able to make the top 10 twice, and really that has been the struggle getting to the front of the pack.
Well, no doubt, and obviously the competition is tougher than it's ever been, and you got guys like Ben Schaller that just absolutely click off a top 5 every time. Mm-hmm. And like I say, when they had a couple DNFs, that makes it very tough to come back on. Not a lot of races on the season for us, so it's not like you got 30 or 40 nights to regain. So thank goodness things have really been clicking lately, and it's got us right back there in the hunt again.
You mentioned it. Only 2 times you finished outside of the top 10. Ben Schaller, who's sitting in second, hasn't finished outside of the top 10 in the 13 races. Only outside the top 5 3 times. It is a tough set of guys that you have got to get around when you're only better in top 10s than 5th place Jason O'Brien.
That is interesting. I don't follow the statistics enough to, but that is very interesting, and it does show how deep the competition is, and any one of them. And I don't want to, draw a line at the top 10, but there are, 8, 10 cars that are absolutely capable of winning, that all have good equipment and good motors and got good experience, and you got a lot of guys that are really putting their stuff together this year, and it's close at the front of the field every night and on the points.
Yeah, I mean that actually sounds like an old Busch All-Star Tour field type deal. I mean, for a season, you'd get, you'd be coming around to the last couple races, and, maybe some guy won 3 races, but it was the guy that ran in the top 5 every week was the one leading the points.
Yes, and we've won some points over the years by not winning races. Obviously, every racer's goal is to win races and the points, but, when you're points racing, and that's what the SLMR, ultimately is built toward that climax of the points champion, that's what, we're all fighting for there. Whether you win races or not, it's whatever it takes to win the doggone points. And like I say, Ben has been doing his job, and Bill Layton has been, relentless lately. So it's going to be a tight one.
You've got 2 points paying races left with I don't know if you want to call the Knoxville race a fun race, but there's 4,000 to win. So I don't know how much fun you're going to be sitting back having as you're trying to win that race.
Well, I've been on a lot of pressure situations over the years, and I feel like this is probably one of the biggest ones for me. We've only raced Knoxville once or twice. I can't remember, once for sure. It's been a long time ago, and of course, just the fame and the name of that track, we want to go there and be on our A game, and everybody does, and I know that. So it's a lot of pressure for me personally. We don't have a lot to prove to win races or championships. We've done that. It's still obviously our goal, and we want to win. But to win at Knoxville, because we don't know how many more chances we'll have to be there, and we don't know how many more chances we'd have to win there. So we're coming into this, on a high note right now, and hopefully we can continue that on into Knoxville.
This is a lot like the Thursday night race that you guys typically race at the Silver Dollar Nationals, because the Lucas Oil guys are going to be there. The stage is probably going to be at its brightest, and you guys have an opportunity to really shine.
And there's always that on top of it. We want to look good in front of the professionals. We've ran well in the years past at the Lucas Oil, the Silver Dollar Nationals portion for the SLMR series. We want to go to Knoxville and redeem ourselves. We weren't as good this year at Silver Dollar on the SLMR night as we'd like to have been. So I'm hoping we can roll into Knoxville and, just dominate and win and go home and say, oh, that was easy. But we know it's not going to be easy. We know that.
You get down there tonight to Eagle, which is a place that you've had a bunch of success at. And if I'm not mistaken, did you not win the last late model track title at that track?
Oh, boy. You guys in these statistics, we ran very well at Eagle. I think we did. I'm pretty sure we did. That's going to take me back a few years. I think Anthony might have said that we've won, or somewhere I read or heard that we've won the last 4 SLMR shows, or the only 4 SLMR shows that's been there, something like that. So yeah, a lot of pressure for us Saturday. Not a ton of money on the line, but Sunday, excuse me, tonight. But I have 1 and 3 in a row coming into this. To win 4 in a row it was a huge feat. So and then come back at Eagle and win again. And since we've been on a winning streak there, it's I don't know. A lot of stars are going to have to line up, but I feel we're in as good of a position to do that as we ever have been.
But you're probably the guy with the most experience at that track, because a lot of the guys that are going to be in the pits with you for the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series may have only raced there once or twice, and it was only with the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series. Well,
and that's a good point you bring up, I guess. That's where my age starts to show up again. I as a racer, I feel like everybody's done all that I've done, and we're all equal on experience, but behind the scenes, it's not the truth. The matter of fact is that at my age and experience level and at that track, since we haven't run late models there for a long time, except for the SLMR series, I certainly should have the upper hand when it comes to experience there, because a lot of these, the Ben Schallers and Tad and Bill Laytons, they're a young enough generation that they haven't, raced years there like I did back in the 90s and 2000s.
Well, let's get one thing straight. First off, you don't have age. You've got season.
Season. Oh, I like
seasoned.
that.
Experience.
Seasoned.
You are a well-seasoned steak.
Okay, I'll take that. Yep, I'll go with that one.
$1,200 to win tonight at Eagle Raceway. Then you guys gear up for $4,000 to win at Knoxville, and then you guys take about 2 to 2.5 weeks off, and you wrap up the season. $3,000 to win at I-80 Speedway, the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series home for the Casey's General Store Fall Brawl. You've got the momentum going into the last 3 races, the last 2 points paying races of the night, but you can't take anything off, can you?
Not at all. And that's always the points racing thing, especially when it's as tight as it is and the competition is as deep as it is. We can have a good night and still run 5th or 6th, and that's a good night with this competition. So there is no room for errors, and I guess we're sitting in as good a position as I could ask, given what it looked like a few months ago. I didn't think we'd be leading going into 2-point nights left, so I'm feeling good about it, but we know it's not over by no means.
Everything going good with the farming business, though?
Harvest is closing in fast, so we're working on equipment, and the crops look like some fields have the potential to be our best yields ever, and some of them have had a lot of wind storms up here, so some of them have blown over a little bit. So there's going to be some challenges, but every year there is in farming, so they're just different every year.
Well, why don't you get a bunch of guys excited and say, well, we're going to miss the fall brawl due to harvest?
I don't think that'll happen, unfortunately. And that's where when people say, are you a racer that farms, or are you a farmer that races? And probably at the end of the season, it's for sure I'm a racer that farms. So we'll be there no matter what, and then we'll go home and try and make up on the farming end of it again, I guess.
Yeah, those combines got lights on them. You're good.
They do. We've got nice big equipment anymore, and we'll get through it. But this year I'm going to feel a little extra pressure with some of the crop that's down, and harvest is coming a little earlier this year, and so we're going to be in the thick of harvest these last couple of races, no doubt about it. But we'll endure our way through it. I'll just call it. It'll be a good mental break to go racing, I guess.
Well, Kyle, can't wait to see you tonight at Eagle Raceway for the Nebraska Cup. I wish I could be there next weekend at Knoxville for the debut of the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series at Knoxville Raceway, but I'll just have to settle for 2 out of the 3 races for the final of the Malvern Bank Series.
Yeah, I'm going to Knoxville. I know that.
I would hope so.
I had to get rid of Nebraska football season tickets to make it over there. I thought about doing the double because the football game's at 11 in the morning and skipping out for the 4th quarter and driving to Knoxville, but I'm too old for that stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and do the Knoxville thing.
Seasoned.
I hear you. Got to keep your priorities straight.
Tell him he's not old. He's seasoned. Tell him, Kyle.
Seasoned.
No.
Yes, you're seasoned. It's not age.
No, I'm old. I got chrome hair and everything.
Hey, at least you got hair. Let's take that for take what you get.
Yeah, that's right. But not all of us have all that.
Kyle's ran so fast it's still back on lap 3.
Some of it just. If you probably looked in his helmet, there's a whole helmet full of it, I'm sure.
There used to be, but not anymore. There's none left to give.
Well, good luck the next couple of races, Kyle. Always do love talking to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for the interview, and enjoy talking with you.
We'll see you, Kyle. Have a good night.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Bye. So, again, that was Kyle Berck, driver of the number 14, the Marquette Missile out of Marquette, Nebraska. He'll be he'll be at Eagle Raceway tonight, weather permitting. There's always got to throw that in there because we've had so much rain lately.
Well, actually, Bill Ranby, who I watch, has said that we'll be good after about noon on Saturday. He's called the rain off for the football game and everything else going on. So we should be good on Sunday. But, again, that stray thunderstorm that always seems to find Eagle Raceway could show up. And
it's going to be a good show, the Nebraska Cup. You're also going to have the Race Saver sprint cars on hand, and the War Power Eye Wingless 410 Series will be in action that night. It's going to be a big night. Make sure you get your tickets now, eagleraceway.com. Actually, it's day of the event, so just get them at the door. I believe they're $20 for adults, $5 for kids 6 to 12, and kids 5 and under will get in for free.
And if you haven't seen the War cars, they're pretty good, but late models at Eagle, I've seen some of the best racing that I've ever seen working at Eagle Raceway with the old Busch All-Star Tour, some great races, and you'll want to see late models at Eagle. That's a treat.
Fill the stands, and let's get a packed crowd out there for the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series. Appreciate everybody joining us for the first half of the show. We still got a lot still to come. Jack Dover just around the corner to talk about his Jackson Nationals win, and we're going to preview today's race at Indy, and which is the final race before the playoffs. So we'll get you set for the playoff picture as the drivers compete for the final couple of spots into the playoffs for this year's 2018 NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series playoffs. We'll be back on the front stretch.
Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around the professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Rolling into turn number 3. Brought to you by Kansas Speedway. Tickets for the Hollywood Casino 400 October playoff race for the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series. It's an elimination race. Tickets are on sale now at kansasspeedway.com or call 866-460-RACE. That's 866-460-RACE. Don't forget, head over to kansasspeedway.com. Ticket packages, weekend packages, ARCA Series on Friday, Xfinity Series on Saturday, and then 4 drivers are getting eliminated Sunday after they complete the Hollywood Casino 400, and that's always a good race to get a couple of tickets to and head over and have a little bit of fun. Talking to a guy who last weekend had a whole lot of fun. 1 week ago, you were sitting in your camper kind of wondering, maybe I could win this race tonight. Talking to the 53 at Jack Dover, the gas man himself, won $10,000 at Jackson Motorplex for the Jackson Nationals. First off, I'm sure you've heard it a lot. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
You've won 2 big races, bigger paying races for the Sprint Car Series in the last, 4 or 5 years?
There's another one some people are forgetting. I won the Steve King Memorial down in Jetmore, Kansas.
Oh.
That paid $10,000, so I've won 3 or 4 of them. But
wow.
When they're that big, they're pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys that show up to that. And what I always get a joke out of, Dirk and I were talking about it, I think Sunday night after you won that race, or maybe it was Monday morning. And he goes, "Do you think that $10,000 is already spent?" And I said, "Oh yeah, there was some bills paid for the race team."
We only had one bill, and we got that covered. So the rest is just sitting in the bank in case we need it. Good deal.
It's always good to have the racing account in the positive.
Yeah. I try to keep it in the positive. I'm very fortunate to have good sponsors behind me. So the last couple of years, it's been in the positive, and it's been stress-free pretty much.
I'm sorry. I can't keep a solid face after last year. You had a very stressful 2017.
Yeah, it was tough, but, I mean, we got through it.
It's worth it because in the end, you're not in debt. You didn't have to write any banknotes. You didn't have to, steal from Peter to pay Paul. And you get to go out and do something you absolutely love.
Yeah, I only got one bank loan, and that's for my race car trailer, so that's a necessity. But other than that, I've never believed in taking a loan out to go racing.
It's kind of a hobby. I mean, you do really well with the hobby. Hopefully, we could all have a hobby like this, but it's an expensive one at that.
Yes, very. I mean, it is a hobby, but I treat it as a business.
Yeah, and not only $10,000, you also won $3,000. What, Thursday night, the weekend, or was that Friday night?
Friday night, we walked out of there with $3,000, and then Saturday we ran third, and that was 1,100. So walked out of there with 14-1. So that's not a bad weekend.
That's a heck of a weekend.
Yeah.
After the gas bill, probably about $4,000.
Well, actually, we talked to the guy that put on the money up there, and he gave us some tow money too. So
Oh, really?
yeah, they are great people up there. They
Awesome.
love racing up there.
A great. I got to get up there one of these times. Stan Caesar keeps telling me, I'm going up to Jackson. You want to come? And I'm like, man, if you ever stay in the night, I'd go with. But to drive, what is it, 4 hours up there?
4 hours, yep.
And then watch about a 4 or 5 hour race and then drive 4 hours back. And then he usually gets up and goes to a racetrack on Saturday.
Yeah, it's like after we won on Sunday night, we were debating to stay and celebrate or drive home that night. And we ended up driving home, and I think I got us home at like 4 in the morning.
Oh, you should have just stayed and celebrated.
Nah. I figured with the adrenaline I had going, I was like, I'm just going to drive us home and get this done with. I won't be tired driving.
Yeah. How far did that last?
I didn't go to bed till 5 o'clock.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
can't believe that's insane. But I absolutely agree with you, after you get that adrenaline going. But the problem for me is that adrenaline usually doesn't last very long. So then as there's that high with the adrenaline, there's the crash.
Have you ever won 10 grand in a night?
No.
Well, I'm sure if you won 10 grand in a night,
it would
it'd be
last
a little
lot
different.
longer.
Yeah.
Well, take me through that night, because I was watching the video highlights of the race. 30-lap feature, and you've got guys like Terry McCarl and Thomas Kennedy that are sitting right behind you, and they've won plenty of these races, so they've got the experience to find a way around you.
Yeah, I was actually guessing there was going to be 50 cars there, but I think there was a total of 37 or something.
Yeah.
But those 37 cars, anybody had a chance at winning.
Mm-hmm.
They're all good cars. So to go out there and beat them is pretty awesome. And we got our maintenance done early in the day. We went to the track, ran hot laps for the dash, and come in for hot laps, and something broke on my rear end. So we had to thrash and hurry up and change the rear ends, put a new rear end in it before the dash, and didn't really get a chance to go up and look at the track or anything. So we just kind of winged it and went out and won the dash. And that's put us starting first in the feature and just led every lap. I mean, it was weird. I mean, normally as a race goes on, your car gets looser, but for some reason my car got tighter as the race went on.
Where's the point in a feature number of laps that you have to set up your car different than the way the race is going to finish? Because you've got like the Knoxville Nationals, which I think is like a 80-lap race
50.
or is it a 50-lap race, and the track will change a lot.
Right.
And so when they come in for that pit stop, they've got to make adjustments to stay with the track. Is a 30-lap feature the same, or is it change closer to the 40 to 50-lap area?
No, I mean you got to compensate for the track conditions with 30 laps. So I try to set it up for halfway. My car gets better. And for some reason, I've been thinking about it all week why my car got tighter, because that never, ever happens. It always gets looser. So for some reason, it got tighter, and we got worse as the race went on. Normally, we get a lot better. So I've been trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah, because Terry McCarl actually passed you at one point in time, and then the caution came out before the lap was counted, so I think you got the lead back.
That's right,
yeah. And it was that kind of a, oh no.
Well, I mean, I felt like we had a good pace, and we had a good distance on second. I think it was a half straightaway, so that's not bad. But the only reason he caught us is because I had to slide a lap car, and it killed my momentum. I went up and slid up and hit the cushion, and he was able to stay up top, and that's where he caught us.
So you didn't really, you weren't too worried about it coming back to the green after that caution. You were got the lead back, and you weren't too worried about it. It wasn't sitting in the back of your head like, oh no, he's got his car right.
No, I mean, I think if he would have passed us, I think we could have easily passed him back. Especially as the race went on. I mean, I think a lot of people got a little freer, whereas I got tighter. So if I had to go to the bottom where it was slick, I think we could have done something.
Yeah.
So just a weird deal. We learned a lot also that weekend. We learned some stuff with tires and big gains on fuel systems. So
yeah. Isn't that, do you think it's odd that at your point in your career, you're still learning big advantages?
Not really. I mean, any day you can learn something new is a good day. So if I can learn 3 things a day, I'd be happy.
Yeah. Coming down to the final laps, Thomas Kennedy was starting to track you down a little bit. That might probably have been because you were dealing with some pretty heavy lap traffic.
And getting tight.
At any point in that race, did you get worried at all?
Coming to the white flag is where I heard him, and coming out of 4, I heard him. I never seen him. I just heard him. I was like, oh, he's pretty close. So just kind of came up to a lap car going in 1 after the white flag was flowing and slid him, and Thomas got held up behind the lap car, and we never looked back after that. I think we beat him by like 6 car lengths. So
wow, great win for you guys.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a huge turnaround. I keep talking about 2017 was to most drivers, they wouldn't mind having a 2017 season like you had, because even though you wrecked a couple of cars, you lost a couple of engines, you still had a successful year. But I think for your standards, last year was a tough year for you.
Very tough. I mean, our average wins the last 10 or 12 years, we've average about 15 or 16 wins, and last year we were at 7, and this year we're at 11. So I'm not where I want to be with wins this year, but we've only DNF'd twice, and I was looking at our stats the other day. We ran 37 times, and we've been in the top 5 like 32 times. So we've been really consistent.
And you've gained a lot this year, but I think last year at the end of the year, you really kind of had a crossroads of deciding if you were going to retire and deal with the trucking industry full time, or if you were going to go back at it. And you ended up deciding to go full time or go back at it full bore with the race team. You've picked up a couple of new sponsors, and you've got some really big momentum right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about retiring, but the Liquid Trucking, they came aboard, and a couple of my other sponsors stepped up a little bit more as far as money. So when those opportunities come, you got to kind of give it another shot, and that's what we've done. And I haven't even thought about retiring again. So
that's great.
Just it's awesome when I got good people behind me like Liquid Trucking or Certified Transmission, Carpetland, Backland, Triple S. Another thing that was crazy about this year is we switched a lot of stuff up as far as our program. We switched chassis, engines, like our torsion bars and shocks. We did a 180-degree turn on everything, and it's worked out really well.
That's great, and you can see it too because you're back there again. You're fighting for the wins. You may not always be getting them, but you're back up front again. And I think there's a couple of tracks that when Jack Dover shows up, it's a lot of people just assume, okay, he's got this in a bag. And 2017 was a year that at the end of the year you could really begin to question. I don't know if he's got this in the win. He's at I-80. He's good here, but he's not had a great year. Now I think you're back to that point again.
Yeah, I mean, anytime people think that when you pull into the pits, that means you already got them beat. So it makes the night a lot easier.
Last time you were at I-80 was for the Speedyville Smith Memorial with the Nebraska 360s, and big announcement in the pits that Dennis Parker is retiring as the president. Were you surprised by that announcement?
A little bit, but not really. I mean, I think he's getting ready to sell his company, and I think he just wants to relax a little bit. He's done a lot for our series the last 4 years it's been, and I think it's just time for somebody else to get in there and give it a shot. He's done really well at it, and I don't blame him for stepping down.
You gonna do it?
No. My girlfriend wanted to do it. I was like, I don't want any part of that. You can do it. It's
a whole level of headache that, I think a lot of people are in the same boat as you. You're like 30% surprised because it's a very thankless job. It's a lot of work. There's no payoff. I mean, it's not like you're making any money off the whole thing. And so the 30% surprise is that he actually retired. Yeah. He actually stepped away. You always hear people talk about, drivers all the time. I'm done after this year. I'm done after this year. I hear it 100 times and I tell them the same thing. I'll believe it when I see it. And a lot of times they may take a race or two off or maybe a half a season, but they're right back at it again. The surprise part to me is that he is actually stepping away.
Yeah, I'm really surprised too. But in his defense, if he's selling his business, I think it's just time for him to settle down and enjoy it a little bit.
He deserves it. I mean, he's probably one of the biggest sprint car fans I know.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, that includes guys like Alan Dehigh and Stan Caesar. I mean, I think Dennis is one of the biggest sprint car fans out there.
I don't think anybody would beat Alan Dehigh.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
He's pretty dedicated.
He is. But so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the Nebraska 360 series going into next year if someone is able to step up and take over the reins of that operation.
Why don't you try it?
I would love to. I would love to, and I think I would do okay at it. I don't know enough about sprint cars to be able to create good enough rules.
Right.
And really, I mean, my goal overall would really be to restrict the spending ability in the sport, which for the top guys would hurt them because then they would be just as even as probably the bottom 30% of the drivers. And as a top guy, you don't want that. You want to distance yourself as much as possible. Yeah. I look at NASCAR right now, and Hendrick Motorsports has no interest in curtailing spending because right now they can still somewhat afford to do it, and they're in the front. Now, Hendrick Motorsports is a bad example because they're not in the front. Maybe Joe Gibbs Racing would have been a better one, but the top spending guys are able to find victory lane a lot easier. And if you rein those rules in and you make it fair for everybody or less expensive for everybody, then everybody else has got a shot too.
You sound like Michael Waltrip now. Did you see that interview?
That is, I can't get off my show. You just compared me to Michael Waltrip. Oh my God, that hurts. That cut me deep. How could you say that?
Hey, he's got money.
I don't care. He's an idiot. The guy's a goofy. He lost his entire race operation.
Yeah.
I mean, anyways, but
he was talking about stock cars needing to go back to stock. It's just gotten out of hand. I do agree with him.
Yeah, he's got a good mentality, but he does not verbalize it very well.
No,
and sometimes I struggle with that too. But I
so
would
you
love...
are like.
Well, that's going to do it for us today.
Yeah.
But, it's just, I think that with any form of sports, super late models have done it too. I think Joe and Lisa and Steve have done a fantastic job with the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series.
Very well.
They've implemented a couple of general rules to their series that they don't want to go outside 2 hours driving distance of I-80 Speedway. And they're really conscious about the rule changes and the rule packages and how much it would cost to be a part of their sport. And I think that's one huge thing that has hurt sprint car racing, whether it's 410s or 360s.
Or 305s.
Or 305s, the open 305s, is that you can spend the dollars to find victory lane a lot easier.
I
that
totally
just
agree.
That raises the cost of sports. And the reason why we saw 100 and some odd race savers at Eagle last weekend is simply because guys can't afford to spend, if it's $30,000 or $40,000 a year on a sprint car, they can spend it on a $15,000 305 and be just as competitive.
Yeah. I mean, you go out and get a $20,000 305 or a $10,000 305. They're pretty equal.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it goes back to setup or drivability.
Yeah.
But
And that's the part that I don't understand and why I wouldn't take over as president of Nebraska 360s. I don't know how to make a 360 Sprint Series rule package that would make that competitive advantage.
I don't think you could.
You can't?
It's just too out of control right now.
And there's got to be a way. Hopefully there's a way. Otherwise, we're going to spend ourselves out of a class.
And I think it's getting to that point.
Absolutely. Because, Dennis isn't walking away because he has too many cars coming to the track every week.
Yeah.
He's walking away simply because he's had too much stress, too much pressure, too much everything, and for 12, 13, 14 cars.
Yeah.
That's the same thing Roger Hayden was in 6 years ago when he decided to drop the 360 class at Eagle. There wasn't enough weekly guys to keep the class there.
It's tough, but like you said, I hope it gets better.
And with guys like you, and you've got Shaylee Bay that's coming up into it. Cody Ledger's doing really well in the 360 series. Thomas Kennedy, the guys coming clear out of Canada to come race with us. I mean, what's that say about the guys we got around here?
We got some really good guys.
He wants to come down here and race with the good guys.
Yep. It's just I don't have an answer for it, honestly.
No, I think that's the problem, is that no one does. Talk to me about the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. What's in hand for the 53?
Well, this coming weekend we're going to be up at Park Jeff. I think we have an off weekend, and they got a 305 show up there Friday and Saturday. So we're thinking about going to that, and then the weekend after that we're going to Wheatland, Missouri for the Jesse Hockett Memorial, 3 days. And then I think after that we're going to the Fall Brawl.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to race 305 and 360 or just
yes.
one of them?
I'll be in the 81 and the 360s, and then I'll be in my 53 and the 305, just because I'd already committed to the 81 car earlier in the year.
Okay.
So we'll be doing double duty that night, and then after that we're going to probably shoot down to Texas. Haven't been down there for a couple years. Yep.
Go down there for a couple of weekends?
It's one weekend. It's a Friday, Saturday, but it's at the famous half-mile Devil's Bowl.
Okay.
Mesquite, Texas.
With your hauler, can you pretty much just make that as a camper, and you could go kind of just sit in a parking lot and live out of it for a couple of weeks?
You could. I mean, a truck stop is better, just so you can go in and shower next morning or whatever. But you can sleep in there. I wish there was a shower, because then we could definitely sleep in there. But
yeah.
I think something come this winter, that's something we're going to work on, is putting a bathroom and some bunk beds in the trailer. That way we don't have to buy hotel rooms.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge expense when you're talking about traveling. Those hotel rooms. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Just this last weekend, I spent $600 on rooms.
Man, so you only made $13,400.
Yeah.
God.
What a rough weekend.
Don't ask him for any money, guys. Broke already.
Yeah. I'm tight with my money as it is, but
we gotta be.
This week, my girlfriend wanted something, and she's like, "You just want all that money." I said, "It don't matter. I got just who I am."
You don't lend money to the race team, so why should you take money from the race team?
Exactly. Yep.
It's a good business decision. All right, man. Appreciate you coming in. Always love sitting down and talking with you. We'll have to do it again soon so we can get a little bit more in depth.
Hopefully we come in after the Fall Brawl. We can talk about winning 2 features.
There you go. Doing double duty at the Midwest Fall Brawl. Get your tickets now for the Midwest Fall Brawl. The Casey's General Store Midwest Fall Brawl at I-80 Speedway, i80speedway.com. Jack, always do love having you on the show.
yeah, hopefully everybody listening comes out to that fall brawl. It'll be a great show.
Absolutely, and beautiful weather too. I'm crossing my fingers that we're going to have absolutely gorgeous weather.
Yeah, you don't know what Mother Nature's doing this year. She's a tough one.
Every year we say she's a fickle pickle, and this year it just gets worse.
Oh, she got me in this year.
It's terrible. All right, man.
Thanks for having me.
We'll come back. We'll be back in turn number 4 on the front stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Boy, what a great show it's been. Heading into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube. All of today's action at Indianapolis Motor Speedway is on the big screens of Quaker Steak and Lube. It's on NBCSN starting at 1 o'clock with the green flag set to wave at 2. All Pick'ems contestants, whether you're in the season-long contest, the 5-week Kansas Speedway Crewman for a Day contest, or if you're in both, all your picks are due by 2 o'clock today.
Hey, speaking of Pick'ems contest,
yeah,
somebody got passed this week.
What's that? Who? No, there was a glitch in the system.
Somebody got passed this week.
Did I? I took Alex Bowman as I'm sitting at Eagle 5 o'clock on Saturday or Sunday night. And the features rolling out, and I went, oh, man, I got to make my pick. And I just went, okay, I'll go with Bowman. And then as soon as I made it, I went, well, it was probably a dumb pick. And then sure enough, guy blows a tire or he lost an engine or something. And
I think it was a tire, but he actually did fairly well early in the race. And you want to talk about somebody about going through the roof. I had picked Kyle Larson.
Yeah.
And when he was trying to pass the 3 car and the 3 got into him,
yeah.
Oh, man. I was about ready to start heading to North Carolina because I was going to shoot somebody.
You were going to go find Papa and his little boy?
Oh, I mean, me and Kevin Hardwick was going to get together, and I was going to beat him to death with a silver spoon is what I was going to do.
So I ended up walking out with 14 points on the day while you got 54. So I'm not surprised if you passed me or not. It's still young in the season. I got time. I'm saving my picks. That's all I'm doing. We're going to go with that. All of today's action, as always, are on the big screen of Quaker Steak and Lube. If you don't have NBCSN, then just head over to Quaker Steak and Lube. The audio will be on. The wings will be delicious. The beer will be cold. And you'll be able to enjoy all of today's, do I even say action? Do I even say race?
Well, there'll be some action somewhere along the line, like, you know, if they just made 10-lap stages and did, 2 10-lap stages or maybe 3 10-lap stages and then a 20-lap stage for the end, they could run a 50-lap race. We'd be watching it for an hour and a half, and there would be action.
I don't know if there would be, bud.
Oh, yeah,
I know you're
would.
very optimistic about that. This is probably my most hated race on the schedule.
The bad part about the action will be cars bouncing off the wall. The kind of action we don't want to see, but there will be action.
Yeah. And Indy is set for today. It's nothing against the track because I love watching the Indianapolis 500.
It's everything against the track as far as I'm concerned. They ought to go ahead. They should go ahead and make the road course at Indy, which they've got because they ran Formula One there. They ought to run that road course.
I don't want
at
them
Indy.
to do that.
Screw that. The Brickyard.
My running theory is that if Indy ever loses their race, which I hope it's coming in the next year or two, it will go to Iowa Speedway. That's a hope. That's a fan hope. That's a pipe dream because Iowa Speedway's got a lot of work to do. And quite frankly, like I said that day after the last Xfinity race, if NASCAR's ever considering taking a Cup Series race there, the fans better damn well start showing up because they're not doing it for the Xfinity race. And I don't know why in the world Iowa would ever pony up for a Cup Series purse when they can't even really fill the stands for an Xfinity Series race. But soapbox. I'm getting on my soapbox.
It's all an intercompany deal at that point because NASCAR owns Iowa Speedway. But right now, I would be hard-pressed to say that there's enough motel rooms to bring a Cup Series race. They build up a bunch of motels in Newton just for the race weekends, but I don't think there's enough. There's definitely not enough in the Newton area. And you stretch into Des Moines, I don't know if there's enough to handle the
It would be
traffic.
tight because it's tight as it is for us. We can't get hotel rooms in Newton when we go over there, and so we end up staying in Des Moines the last couple of times. But anyways, Indy is today, and I hope again that it's a good race. I really do want it to be a good race because I want the sport to thrive. Unfortunately, it hasn't been very successful at Indy, but today is the race at Indy. And again, coverage is at 1 o'clock on NBCSN. If you don't have the higher tiered channels, you can always head over to Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. So Daniel Suarez, Paul Menard, Ryan Newman, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. have to win to get in. Alex Bowman, 68 points to the good, just has to finish the race.
Yeah, so basically, anybody below Alex Bowman has to win to get in, and that would knock Bowman out.
So
except for Austin Dillon.
Yeah, and if Stenhouse, Newman, Menard, Suarez, on down the line, McMurray, Byron, Busher, Allmendinger, Reagan, McDowell, Kane, Wallace, Ty Dillon, Matt DiBenedetto, I probably missed a couple of guys. If they win, Alex Bowman would be on the outside looking in, but Jimmy Johnson would still be in.
Right.
So Johnson's pretty much in. And then looking at the playoff pictures, as far as your playoff points are concerned, Kevin Harvick would be reset as your points leader with 40 playoff points. Kyle Busch would be second with 35. Martin Truex Jr. third with 27. Clint Boyer has 10. He'd be in fourth. And then your top five, Brad Keselowski, 9 playoff points with 1 race win. So that's how they would get reset when we go into the playoffs starting next week at Las Vegas.
And Jimmy Johnson basically needs to pick up some stage points and stay in the top 10 to lock himself in.
Yeah, I don't think he has any playoff points if I was looking at that screen right.
No, he hasn't won a stage.
That's just crazy to think. Yeah. We've gone an entire 25 races. Jimmy Johnson hasn't won a race, won a stage, nothing. I mean, that's just it. I don't know. It's dumbfounding to me, but that's the sport.
The body change has really been a boon to them. I mean, they've a debacle. They just have got nowhere with this.
Yeah.
And
well, we talked about, and again, this is kind of getting a little bit more into the weeds than we need to, but we talked about it at Iowa Speedway with a couple of guys. Chevy's biggest issue is that none of the team owners are getting together to say, hey guys, let's pool some money, let's run some tests, let's do some things, let's talk about what we're learning, and let's figure out what not to do. Instead, they're all saying, no, we're going to keep working on our own.
Yep.
Because they want to be selfish, and Hendrick wants to be the first one to find it. And then that puts Richard Childress behind the barrel.
Well,
which, by the way, how does Richard Childress end up finding what Hendrick's doing? Spending a lot of money if he can afford to do it.
And Richard Childress is the one that wants everybody to share their information. Said, look, we're all behind the 8 ball, and he's got a driver that won a race. Mm-hmm. So, it's a bad deal over in the Chevy camp right now, and that's too bad.
Speaking of that deal, as of the reset for today, Austin Dillon is in 10th with 5 playoff points. So that's the way the playoff picture rolls out for today at at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Same place.
They're going to kind of give this bubble a bit of a ride, and honestly, there's no story there. Jimmy Johnson is going to play good old Jimmy Johnson, and he's going to cruise. He's not going to push the envelope because he doesn't want to wreck the car and risk some freak scenario, or because he pushed the car, he ends up outside looking in. Same thing with Alex Bowman. They're going to play it very, very conservative today, and they're going to run their race. I don't expect today to be a elimination-style race like we're going to see in 4 races when we get to eliminate the first 4 drivers in the playoffs, where those 4 guys are racing their hearts out. I think Jimmy Johnson and Alex Bowman, who are on the bubble, are going to be racing very conservatively, and I think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Ryan Newman, if they have the opportunity to win, same thing with Paul Menard and Daniel Suarez, they'll go for it if they have the opportunity to win, but they're not going to push it if they can't.
Right, that's correct.
Again, coverage is on NBCSN starting at 1, green flag waves at 2. Make sure you get your picks in on time. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. We're going to be live next weekend thanks to Archer Purdue Auto Sales. We'll recap the late model nationals at Knoxville Raceway. we will sit down with Derek Cope, the manager at Starcom Racing, and we're going to talk with Bob Harris, announcer at Adams County Speedway, to preview the tradition down at Adams County Speedway, and then we will talk about the playoff picture, who's in, who's out, whose playoff points are getting them farther, and then we'll preview the race at Las Vegas. Did I miss anything?
Nope, I think you got it pretty much.
A fresh order of front stretch hats went in, so if you haven't gotten yours yet, we've got a fresh set coming in. We have Flex Fit right now, but there's snapbacks that are coming. So if that's more your style, send us an email, frontstretchradio@gmail.com. I can send you a couple pictures of them so you know what they look like, and we can meet at the track, and I'd love to get you a hat. Just $20 for people that are for regular fans, and if you're a part of the Pick'ems contest, they're just $15. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us on the front stretch. This has been presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you white knuckle racing by the river bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
The official watering hole of the front stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.